Hey everybody, welcome to today's video challenge. My name is Wade Acuff, and I'm going to be your host for all of November's video challenges. But today we do have something that is a little, I don't know, it's a little fun. We're going to be animating track mats. You may hear me call it a mask. Sometimes I use that term. Yeah, we're going to also we're going to focus on that with a levels adjustment to create the animation, to drive the animation. It'll all make sense in a minute. We're also going to jump into Photoshop for some customization of your watermark or splash little look that we're going to go for. I want to say hi to everybody in chat real quick. What's up? How's it going? I see Jack's here. Clever, how's it going? Christelle, how's it going? But yeah, we're gonna jump into this right now. I want to show you an example of what we're going to be doing. Here we go. You'll also notice as we go through the example, I've only provided a couple of files for your starter file because I want you to create this. I want this to be your experience. And this was mentioned in chat. This is supposed to be watched. If you need time to go back through and watch at a different pace, that's fine. But we're going to create something like this. I'm going to let it just play. And I just made a quick little reveal. So if you see this little watermark that's coming up in the background, it's really very simple to do this. And it's not just, it's using the Luma, using a Luma mat to drive the animation. So the black and white value of the file. I did provide also an alpha matte version that you could use, but we're not really going to get into that. But it's there if you want it. Let's jump into Photoshop real quick because there is a custom element to this. I just made a 1080 by 1920 image here because that's kind of what we're working with. It's a blank file with a layer. But I also want to jump in here because our good friend Kyle T. Webster, which I hope, let's see, I don't have the doc pulled up, but maybe we can get a link to those Kyle T. Webster brushes. He has tons of brush sets. He has one that's specifically watercolor, which you might be able to see over here. This is special effects brushes. Here we go. Watercolor, tons of watercolor brushes. We're going to use 2 of them. And I took 2 of them specifically and made copies because I believe it was last week or sometime I heard someone saying, I wish they could search for brushes in Photoshop. To find the brush that they've named or whatever. But yeah, if you name the brushes, which is what I did here, I just copied a couple of them. If I start typing in spatter in this field, it will pull up every brush that has the name spatter. So the one that I copied is there. Let's see. There's tons of others that also apparently use the term spatter. But this was the only one I was looking for. You can search for this. So if you customize your brushes, if you make names that are funky and however you want to name them, they will be there. Easy to find, even if you have 1,000 brushes. But you also want to make sure you empty that field out so you can have access back to your brushes. But I'm going to use something. I believe this one was called. Right now I've changed the name, but I believe it's called like Big Texture or something like that. Let's see. And so what we want to do is I'm going to make a darker center. And I'm trying to make this look kind of watercolor-ish. It doesn't have to be. It can really be anything that has a bit of a gradient to it. And you'll see what I mean. I'll pull up the levels here in a moment. I'm just going to make like kind of a blobby thing. You can even have some like little blobs outside of the main area. So something a little dark in some places. I also have a spatter brush here, which is really fun to play with. Kind of just add some little drops and drips to the edges, just a little bit of texture to this. There's no real need to pop in, but you can see it's looking kind of textural. And just so it's mentioned, just so it is brought up, you can, that may be a little bit too much. I'll add a little bit there. I'll make it a little bit bigger in some places just for fun. But you can also hold down, if you have an American keyboard, you can have a tilde key and hold this down. You could also use this brush to erase, but it adds like that. If you were ever to use watercolor and drop some salt on wet watercolor, it'll start to absorb it. And that's kind of the look that I'm going here, just on the edges. I'll pop back in here real quick so you can get a little better view of that. But just something fairly organic. I may actually want a little bit more outside of this. Something a little bit. There we go. I don't know. Something like that. But let me go ahead and I know you can't see this, but it doesn't really matter. I'm just merging this down, these two layers. This is my background, which is white. So we want a Luma matte, or in this case, a black and white image. But if I Control L and pull up my levels, we'll get a histogram up here. And this is going to operate just like it does in After Effects. You'll see the same little slider, but we're going to use it as a slider. Real quick on the histogram, all the values to the right are your bright values. All the values to your left are your dark values. And the way we're going to use it is if I increase this gap, it's going to increase how much white is being seen. It's actually clamping the values based on the slider, the output levels, and the same way with the other way. So it will increase how much of those pixels are completely dark or black. But we're going to use this. I'll pull this up again in After Effects, but I wanted to show you in Photoshop it works the exact same way. And this is value levels from 0 to 255. And I think, yeah, that's all we need from that. I'm going to click OK. I could have clicked cancel. I'm going to actually rename this Splatter. We might use this one. I may not use, I'll call it Splatter Matte 2. Because I think I have a Splatter Matte 1 already. Let's see if I can drag and drop this in my libraries. It looks like it's working. We don't need that. Bam, it's already in there for us. Let's move over to After Effects. All right, so I want to work on flower base. Here we go. Okay, so I did pull some flowers over. I don't know if I have this pulled up. Let me check. Yeah, here we go. So our good friends at stock.adobe.com/free, you can find, and you can see, I just searched for flowers right here. And all of these are free to license. I just grabbed, this is one that I used. Let's see, it's probably there. There's that one. That's the one I used. There's another one. So you can see I've licensed those already. But you have options if you want resources. This is where we grab these flowers. And I'm going to turn all of these off real quick. And I'm going to pull in from our library this guy, our hero flower for today. It's a little large, so I'm just going to hit S to get to my scale. I'm going to go drop this about 17%. Actually, you know what? Let me pull these back up just so we can see sort of our composition going on. And I want this to be in here. Now, you do see probably a glaring factor that there is a white background on this. That's intentional for now. And I wanted to remove this using a Luma key. Again, that whole Luma idea of using the lightest values. If I go to search for a key for this, if I type in key, down at the bottom, it's also in obsolete. I don't know why, but it is. Because there are other ways you could remove the background for this. It doesn't have to be through the Luma key. I just thought it would be fun. So I'm going to double click. I'm going to make sure I'm selected my layer, then double click. And up here in Luma Key, I'm going to go and make sure I'm keying out the brighter images, which in this case would be our background. And the threshold, now you know our limits are 0 to 255. If we type in 255, it's all of those, everything that's bright about our image. If I go in here and I type in 254, which is one off of the brightest, lo and behold, we have a key that works. And we do have a little rim around here, and that's okay. That's what this edge is for. I'm just going to remove it. You can adjust yours to taste. That's going to be fine for us. I'm not like super worried about these being super crisp. And I probably might not necessarily use the Luma key if there were other bright white spots in our flower. But for this case and for all of these others, it worked really well. But let's get on to the animation part of this. So we have our flower. This is going to be our subject. I want to go back into my library and grab the splatter matte. Let's see, and drag it in here. And let's just see what happens. I'm going to add this over in our matte section. I'm going to add splatter matte 2. And wow, nothing happened. Well, that's because this is set to alpha matte. Now, you could use the alpha if the PNG, one of the PNGs in the starter files, does have, it is an alpha, it does have transparency. So you would see it work this way, but we're going to use this as a Luma matte. You just have to click this again. And then right now we're seeing all of the pixels that were black are acting as our mask. But I want to invert that so that we get something like this, so we can see all that texture on the edges if we want. Now we're going to get into the animation part of this. Super easy stuff. Let me check, see if there are any questions. A couple of hellos. What's up, everybody? Okay, what were we doing? We were about to go into our levels. If I type in levels correctly, you can just get double click, make sure you're on the right layer. And look, it's our histogram, the same one we had in Photoshop. No surprises here. Now we know that we can use this as a slider, and we're going to collapse all of the, which technically is the white part of this. As we move our slider to the left, it will disappear. And that's all we're going to be animating. So let's get to it. I'm going to make sure we're still selected on our layer. Let's bring this down a little bit. There we go. Frame 1, I'm going to hit our little button up here, our little stopwatch button next to the histogram. And if you press U, it will pull up every attribute that is animated on that layer. I'm going to move this out to 1, and I'm just going to add another keyframe. Right now, nothing is happening, but I want to leave this, the histogram, the furthest open to the white, and then clamp it down at the start keyframe. As you do this, it will update that keyframe. So now when I press to replay, I'm just hitting 0 on my number pad, or you can hit the space bar. It will reveal that. And it's a little different than a wipe. It's not quite, you're getting all of the little details of the texture that you had. Little splotches and everything filling in. But let's up the ante a little bit. Let's make that a little bit more robust. All right, so we've got that going on. Let's scale this as we go. So I'm going to press S, or you can hold down Shift and S to get to your scale attribute. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 keyframes in here. And if you ever want to see it, right now you can't see it because it's masked like we were talking about. But if you turn that on, you can see the outline of the layer, and it'll just look like that. It might help you to place it if you need placement later. That may come into play in a moment. But I'm going to scale this down just slightly, something like that. Let's see what that looks like. And it just gives you a little bit of a bloom effect. And it's going to look even better if we add a little bit of easy ease on it. You can, of course, always go in here to your, select your layer and go in and adjust your ease if you would like. I don't think we're going to do that just for sake of time on this, but you could make that an option. I will leave the easy ease on, but also you could come in here and scale slightly the flower. And I'm going to pull that down about 15%. Add the easy ease on that. F9 to do that if you were wondering. And then we get a little bit of something like this. It might actually be too much on the scale because I want it to be subtle, but it's fine. But that's all of this. It's cool. It's not really like, it's not as, I guess, it's not as eye-catching as it could be because we've got something that's kind of looking like drops, and you could make a custom single drop and do this, and it would really be kind of cool. But what we're going to do is we're going to make this a little bit more complicated is the wrong word, a little bit more dynamic. There you go. There's the buzzword I'm looking for. So I just made a copy of those two. I'm going to make sure that there's no matte on this because I'm going to select both of these. And let's see, what is it? Control-Shift-C to pre-compose, and I'm going to call this Splatter Pre-Comp. Click OK. I'm going to double-click to get into that so we can see what's going on. Right now, there's no matte, but if I apply it, it will be just like we had in the previous in the previous composition. I'm going to press U to get it to all of my animated things. I'm going to remove my scale just for ease of use on this one. But what I want to do is have this come on at different times. I want it to reveal that the flower is being pulled up by these different splotches. And that's going to be super simple to do. What I'm going to do is grab this and let's turn this on so we can see placement. I may even go up to multiply so I can see my flower kind of in behind it. And I'm going to scale this down slightly. Let's see. And I want it, maybe not multiply, maybe even overlay. Yeah, sure, why not? So you can see what part you're going to be revealing, and you can always turn it off, and it'll show you exactly what you're revealing. So I want this to kind of, let's see, maybe do this lower portion of the flower. And just to show you what that looks like, it looks like this. That's just one part of the flower. So all we have to do now is duplicate that same splatter and adjust it and move it around. Oops, not the flower. Let's go ahead and turn this on so we can see it. I'm going to move this up here so we get the top part. You can also scale this a little bit, or actually rotating it is good because that will let you have a different texture that's not similar to the other one. Let's see what that looks like. You have to change the matte though, because what we're doing is making a master Luma key for the entire flower on the other composition. It'll make sense in a moment. I'm going to make another copy so we can get all of our flower revealed. I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And then if I want to turn that on, I can bring this down here and maybe even rotate that. Something like this, maybe. I don't know. If I turn all of these on with overlay and turn off our flower, you can see, oh, is it overlay or no? Let's see, multiply. Yeah, there you go. So this is the full bloom of our matte that we're going to use. Now, what's not happening is it's not delayed. So all you have to do to delay it is stagger these out a little bit, and then you get something like this. So it kind of gives you a slow crawl across the entire image. Doesn't look like much here, but it will in a moment. So what's the biggest problem here is now we might have things peeking through, like this is peeking through the edge. It's not going to be a problem because we're going to use this whole thing as a Luma matte, but what we have to do to make that work is add a white layer, white solid behind everything. So now our image looks like this. And that's exactly what we want. I'm going to go back to the flower base, and we see our splatter comp happening here. I'm going to pull this down and then make sure that we're on the right one, splatter comp. And let's see what that looks like. And it's a little bit slower. It's a little bit, let's see, we might even scale it down some. Let's see. I don't know. That's not bad. So then there's a little bit more watercolory look to it as it adds on. But now we have something we can use with all of the flowers. I might move it over a little bit just so it reveals. And maybe scale it up just a tiny bit. Something like that. Anyway, so now we can start turning on our other flowers and just start duplicating this and applying it, making sure it is applied to the other flowers. And then you have to adjust the matte. And this is where the rotation is really going to take place, because you don't want those same little uniform. Or here's the one thing, you could rotate this, or you can make custom water splashes for every single flower, and that would look even more unique and be a little bit more dynamic. So then let's keep going real quick. I know we're running out of time, but I'm going to turn this one on. Add that guy. And you can see where I'm just placing this. That's the edge of the mat, so I'm just going to pull this over so we can see all of it. I might rotate this guy around as well. There we go. And then let's see. Let's keep going. Duplicate, drag it down, turn on next flowers, apply that mat. And it's just rinse and repeat for all of this until you find everything, until you get everything you ever hoped for. And then one more time, one more again. Bring this down, turn on those flowers, apply that mat, and then move this up. Something like this. Now, when I play this back, it's probably going to be okay. But look how it's all at the same time. It's not really what we want. So we want to stagger these out. So I'm going to take the first one we did, stagger this out a little bit. You can kind of just come down the line and figure out where you want things to start appearing. Might want that in a little bit sooner. So let's see what that looks like. Yeah. So something kind of cool like that. And you know, when I was doing this, I was like, what does this remind me of? What is this really looking like? And I went ahead and I went and changed. I'm going to change this back to white. Control Shift Y if you want to know what those settings are. I'm going to take this back to white. Click OK. And I was like, this is still looking pretty cool. What is happening here? What did it remind me of? Well, then I added some color. And I was like, oh man, this totally reminds me of somebody's work. Who could it be? And of course, I finally came to the conclusion. It looks like our good friend Paul Tranny's work, but I had to add some type in here to make it all work. And if this was a Paul Tranny piece, you would have to just add skulls. So we've got our flowers. Now you go and find some skulls on stock.adobe.com, and you can do this yourself. I did have the add skulls, in this case reveal, just using the same method. You can see that this is a type layer that I could change. You know, I could change this to say, you know, Val, or is it not going to select? There we go. Val. I just saw Val pop in the chat. So it is all still active type. But, you know, just so you know, that's a thing we can do. Also played around with this. Again, let's see if we have one. Yeah, so we showed you this example, the color. This was just this piece, the shape and everything revealing everything we wanted to show. So it was just the one thing. And then I did one. I made a little quote with, here we go. Let's see what this. So this is a quote from one of my favorite little chill out good time movies. If you know the quote, good for you. And I just had the type reveal. I'm just kind of scrubbing through this. And I'm sure most of you may know this. If you know what that's from, let me know in chat. I'm probably going to let you know before we end here. But there's a lot of things you can do with this, and it doesn't just have to be watermarks or water splashes or watercolor. It could be lightning strikes. I don't know. It could be tire treads. It could be anything like that. You're just animating that black and white levels to get you that kind of a gradient. I'm going to check to see if there's anything in chat that I missed. Does not look like it. And I think that's going to do it for us. I hope you guys got something out of this. We have some fun ones lined up for you for the rest of the month. And we do have, who is it that might be coming up next? I think it actually might be our good friend Val. I think that's the case. Is that true? I believe we have Val coming up next. But yeah, that's going to do it for me, everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Also check out yeah, there we go. Val got it. Shaun of the Dead. That's where that quote's from. But hang tight. Some good stuff coming up next. And we'll see you all real soon. Bye, everybody.